Because he's Ghanaian. Hey, he adopted a girl, like a little girl that we're still taking care of. I told him, please, I don't want anybody to cut off my intestine. Let me tell you, thoroughly wanted to enjoy marriage, like in every sense of that word, thorough. Hello guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today we're just going to be talking about us. We're going to be introducing ourselves. We're going to be telling you a little bit about how we met. We're going to be sharing that story. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. One look and I breathe. Quick introductions. This is my husband. His name is Senyo, so you would hear me in some videos call him Seni, this, Seni, that. That's my pet name for him. For me only. I'm the only one who have the right for that name. So this is Seni, and maybe we can start off with how we met. So obviously there's always two versions to this type of story. So I'll start off with my version, and I'll let him sort of chime in with his own version. But I'll definitely hint you when somebody's lying, because you know. Okay, so how did we meet? Very interesting, right? So guys, I will preface this by saying marriage was never in my dictionary. It wasn't in anywhere in the foreseeable future at that time. Even though I still prayed about it. In fact, I've been praying about marriage and my spouse since pretty much. My parents had been praying into it. You know, when I got of age and started praying about that, because I knew that that was definitely something I wanted to get right. It's always a dream. It's always been a dream for me to like marry my passing, my friend, like my everything. Like I thoroughly wanted to enjoy marriage, like in every sense of that word, thorough. So, you know, I've always prayed into that, and I was very careful with my relationships. Like I know people like to wing it, you know, go for someone that's hot and all of that stuff. No, throughout my dating time, I'd always very intentional about who I was with, making sure that okay, they at least ticked the boxes of what I could not compromise on, you know, if we eventually wanted to take it into, you know, a long-term thing. So anyway, how did we meet? I was, you know, working, you know, Charlie. I was at that point where like hard work was my second name. I was there grinding for my company at the time, traveling here and there. It was just something after another. So again, there wasn't really time for anything because I was just super exhausted. I was focused on work, which was stressing me out at the time. But I didn't want another drama. I didn't want to invest like so much into someone, and then it just you end back right at the bottom, and then you have to start from scratch again. So that, like, at that point I was totally exed from relationships. I was just focusing on my God, my family, and my work. Now fast forward to, you know, we chilling, and my colleague and friend, I'm sure if she's watching this, she's gonna know, you know this girl, you know. And then she comes to me and she's like, hey, there's a training in Ghana. It's actually a project management training at the time. And that she wanted us to go. I was like, please, because I had done, you know, project management certification sometime, and that was such an excruciating sort of process, and I wasn't ready to go through that process again. And she convinced me. She's like, girl, you need to go. Oh, Ghana is beautiful. Oh, you need to check it out. By the way, I had been to Ghana a couple times before that, and I was like, nah, mate, Ghana is not like where I want to go to right now. Like at that point, I had a project that I was actually working on that I had a tight deadline for. So the last thing I needed was traveling somewhere for training. Anyway, long story short, she convinced me, and we decided, okay, why not? Let's go for this training. Fast forward, we're in Ghana. Actually, no, take it backwards a bit. On the flight to Ghana, unknown to this, my friend, I was just praying in my mind. I was like, God, you know, if it's your will, please let me meet someone who's reasonable, who's nice, who's friendly, and who's, you know, decent. As a friend, though, not as a husband. Like I just wanted to really meet people, network, and you know, build kind of tangible networks or valuable relationships, right? So as we went, we started off the training. We were chilling in this really super, you know, 5-star hotel. Like we were just living the life at the time. So fast forward to landing in Ghana on the first day of training, we were assigned to groups and yeah, so like what was your own experience actually even coming to Accra? Because you were in Tadi, right? So coming
No,
to Accra for the
I was
training.
actually in Accra at that time.
Okay.
So I joined the company like January, and I think the training was somewhere in June. So I was still like very new in the environment, trying to find my footing. So I was in Accra, just across the street. So coming into the training, for me, it was just an opportunity to learn. Like I've never done project management, so it was an opportunity to learn. I
Mhm.
never thought about networking because I was a very shy type. So it's just how I can come and learn kind of vibe. So I wasn't looking at that time for it. Like to be honest, I was no. Like for me at that time, I was new to the company, trying to find my footing. So
Yeah,
at that point, I was like, oh, I need to do what I can be able to get me
obviously.
very settled, and it was
The
an
list
opportunity to
was,
learn.
yeah, the list for you was, let me come and look for
No,
one
no,
hot
no,
chick to
no,
find.
not at
Because,
all.
listen,
Right.
everybody's trying to stay away from work relationships. So you cannot eat where you, how do they even say that? You cannot, yeah, you cannot poop where you eat.
Yeah.
Feel me? Anyway, so that's his version. So he came in with the opportunity to learn. Me, I was like, yeah, there's a little bit of learning to it, but I just definitely, I mean, it was a good change of environment, and of course, my friend convinced me to come in. So I obviously had to invest myself into the learning. So fast forward into the training process, this my guy was the nicest human being I had ever met, in my opinion, because he was very intentional about us, even though, like he said, he just joined the company, but you could tell that he was genuinely a nice person because others didn't care, and there were other like Ghanaians there, but they didn't care that this one's okay, all right, cool. But he was very intentional about okay, we he was always asking us, oh, do you have
Material.
printouts?
Yeah.
And when we needed that, he took the pain to actually go look for the printouts. He printed for all of us, his desk, my table. He printed for all of us and brought it for us. So that was the first kind of like oh, I was like thank you, and I kept it moving. During like group work and everything, he was always the quiet one in the room. Like he wasn't saying anything. And for me, I read the room. When I was like, he's too quiet. I'm like, oh please. So it just felt me like, oh, this person is probably timid and he's probably like too shy and stuff. So he was the quiet one in the room. But you know that when he chimes in, he like throws one bomb. He's like he chime in, then he would throw one bomb, and then he'll go back to his quiet mood. So I could notice that like here and there, but still it didn't like take anything until the end of the training. But what was your own kind of like experience through
For
that?
me, we're in a group where I think I was the only guy in that group. So I was in the midst of females, right? Which was very unfortunate for me
Unfortunate.
because I'm a very shy guy.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and even to communicate with people, I wouldn't do that. So being in that space, and I think we're two Ghanaians, one lady, a colleague in the same department, and myself.
Yeah.
So I took the like, okay, if they need a material, let me get it for, let me
Yeah.
play the good guy. And
Oh yeah.
honestly, I was like slightly uncomfortable being in the midst of ladies. And for her, she was in the group. She came with her selfie stick and her camera, and all she was doing was always taking selfies. In my mind, I'm like,
I wasn't wait to this
which one
is
is
a
this?
live now. I wasn't taking it during the training
No, I
session
mean
now.
like
It's usually when we're on
you came,
breaks.
yeah. She came with her selfie
Oh
stick and
yeah.
stuff. So like always like pictures,
You
this,
guys, this
that.
content
So
thing
for
didn't start
me,
today.
I was like just watching and then like monitoring the environment and all that. So I
Yeah.
was just waiting for everything to end. So yeah, so at the end of the day, we finished up the training and everything, and we're all set to like move away. And I think they were to stay overnight and leave the next day. So her good friend was
There was a
among us.
2-day training, and then we were supposed to stay through the weekend.
Yeah, they decided to stay
Yeah.
and enjoy Ghana, you
So
know.
so picking back up from my version, once the training was over, we were like we had such a good time during the training. The instructors or the facilitators were superb. We had a good time also networking with the team. Like it was really great. So I was like, hey, I pulled out my selfie stick. I was like, guys, let's take a picture. Everybody who I felt, contributed immensely to, how much of a good time we had. I was like, hey, I pulled them into a picture. I took a group picture with my team and I did with him. Little did I know. So when I saw him walking around somewhere, and I was like, "Hey, let's take a picture." And then I was like, "Boom, pa pa pa!" I took a picture.
She came with the service
I'm
tips. So.
telling you, like, and it's so funny because not my friend. Remember, my friend who convinced me to come to the training was the one kind of relating because she's like the very vocal type. I'm also very shy. I'm only comfortable around the people that I know and I'm comfortable with. But if I don't know you, Charlie, I'm just gonna be mute and watching. So she was the one sort of talking with him, and they were conversing and stuff. And I was like, this my girl has found her one. So next thing, I came to the table. I was like, "Hey, girl, let's dip so we can go eat." I was hungry, and then we wanted to do a few things after. We wanted to go shopping. We wanted to go to Makola Market as well to, and we wanted to check out the Arts and Crafts Center. So lots of things we wanted to do. And she then asked him that he should come by and show us Ghana, like show us around town and stuff. And he was so happy. I was like, yeah. So he was now asking for her number. Note this. He was asking for her number so he could call her when he's at the hotel to pick us up. And unfortunately, I think her phone was dead, and she was like, "Hey, take my friend's number and then call her because we're next door to each other." So next thing we
We didn't even go out. Like
yeah
I don't know for some reason what happened, but I think we
yeah
I
you
don't know,
tried
but
calling.
I
So
think
let me tell you what happened. So when we went in, we waited for my guy. He didn't come, so we left to the market. But I think his plan was to come later on in the night. So we left to the market, and once you leave the hotel, you don't have internet,
mm,
and we weren't roaming at the time. So he tried calling. You actually did try calling multiple times, but he couldn't get us because we were off the
mm,
internet. So it was until we came back. And by the way, my friend who actually convinced us to come, she actually studied in Ghana. So she knew a few people in Ghana, and they linked up, and they were like, oh, they were coming to take us out. So they came to pick us from where we were, and the rest was history. We had a blast. So we now came home, and we totally forgot that there was this very nice gentleman that we actually asked to come show us around. So we saw the missed calls, and I was like, "Hey, girl, this guy was trying to call and everything." So anyway, long story short, we went through that experience, and we never met him. So we left and went back. I totally forgot. I went back to my business. But one funny thing was that the weekend of my trip back home, after the weekend, I actually posted him on Instagram, and I'm gonna put the post here as well. I posted something about him, just not about him because obviously I didn't even know like him, but it was just generally like,
guys, that was the start of the
I
love.
beg you, don't
How
make
do you
us.
meet how do you meet someone and you just go
There
post the
was no love.
person?
I'm just such a fan of capturing moments, especially moments that stick.
Everybody in that
I
conference, I
beg.
was the only one she posted.
He's making
Guys.
himself feel fly. Don't listen to him. After you tell your own version, my version is, so I posted. I was like, because it was like an epiphany for me at the time because he was really nice. He went out of his way to do things like even coffee, hot chocolate. He would go bring us coffee. He would go bring us hot chocolate and everything. And the fact that he didn't know us, but he was willing to show us around, I felt that was good. So I posted something about being nice to people. That there's this, human I met who was just going out of his way to support us, and not just me, everybody. So I felt, that was like a learning to me that it's really how kind you are to people that actually leaves a lasting impact, right? And that was the only thing, or he was the only person I would say I could remember, because of how above and beyond he was just going. So you could definitely see that he was genuinely nice. So I posted that. Next thing, after a couple weeks, right?
I think it was like even months, couple of
Months,
months,
right?
yeah.
He's messaging me. He's like, "Hi, how are you?" Me totally forgetting who the heck he was. I was like, "Okay." And typical me, and it wasn't. I tell you, it wasn't intentional. It's just my job. Sometimes I'm in different time zones. So oftentimes when he sends me messages, I might see it like the next day or something. Maybe I could be in the US now on a trading or on an assignment or something, and he's sending me, but it's until my time that I get to see it. And of course, throughout the work and all that. So I usually only pick up and text, back on my phone, like at night or something, or when I'm in bed. So I responded like after 2 days or 3 days. I don't know. I feel like that might have rubbed him off or something because I'm sure he wasn't used to that. Or maybe he thought I was forming, right?
No, for me, like we couldn't go out, so it was just nice
Yeah.
to
Check
maybe check
in.
in if everything you guys even arrived and all that.
Yeah.
So it took some time, but I think we was it like a month or two
Yeah.
later. So I traveled into Nigeria for like another training, and I didn't
Yeah.
even know she was going to be in the training. So I think we went into the training, and where my group was like in the center, and I looked at the next left, and I saw her sitting there in another
Oh
group,
yeah. And that was
and
after he texted me that I like responded after 3 days. So I felt, oh, he was probably going to be mad. And then we didn't chat, like we didn't continue the chat or anything. Next thing, like he said, boom, we're meeting each other on another training in Lagos. And yeah, so you can tell your version from there.
yeah. So I think we just like exchanged greetings. Hey, hi, good to see you, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and
As per
all that.
colleague level now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that night, so I went with another colleague from Ghana as well, a very
Mhm.
good friend. We started the company on the same day. So I think that night the two of us were going for dinner, and when we
Mhm.
got to the restaurant, we met her sitting at the restaurant, coming
Alone,
to,
by the way.
yeah, coming to
Okay.
like she was about to have dinner, and we were like, okay, why not? Familiar face, the two of us as well. So let's just connect
So
and
wasn't that where your own started?
no, it wasn't really. It wasn't.
Mhm.
It wasn't. No, like it wasn't. But the interesting part of it was after the whole conversation, we had a very like great conversation around food. My good friend who is also a
Oh
chef,
yeah.
they talked about cuisines and all that.
Yeah.
But when we left that night back into our hotel rooms, I was with my friend. I even have the pictures of us in the room, and then he was like, "Oh, that was the first time he was meeting her,
Oh
and
yeah.
like he didn't know I've even met her before, so he was like, "Oh, do you know the way I saw you guys vibe? That's your wife, you know?"
And
I'm
he
like,
said it in passing, but with
"No."
all certainty.
Yeah, so
Like,
I'm like, I don't even like we don't even talk. I don't even know her. Like,
yeah,
you must be something
drinking
is
something.
so he was like, oh yeah, you like that's your wife. I'm serious, that's your wife. And I'm like, I said, right, I can see the way you guys talk, the way you guys connect. There is something about it too. I'm like, no, there is nothing. So yeah, I think the day we finished up the training, we went up to the rooftop. We took some very nice pictures.
Oh yeah. I
The
still
three
have
of
those
yeah,
pictures.
yeah, the
I'm
three
gonna
of
post
us,
it.
we took very nice pictures and all that, and then I think that night we went for a walk as well.
Mm,
When we finished with everything with
mm.
training, we took a walk down the street, walked
Oh
around, and
yeah.
then we got
That was
back.
the longest walk, guys. That was another thing I knew about this guy. So he was very into fitness and he could walk long miles. And me, I wasn't all about that life. Plus hot Lagos. Child, no. Leave that for leave
Yeah.
that for those who love to walk. So we walked a long time. And coming back, I was knackered. But we went shopping and we came back. And I just liked the his thought process, the conversations we had. Like, you know how you meet guys and they'll be like, oh, so what do you do? Oh, so what do you like? Those kind of like mediocre conversations. Like I'm not for it. Like if you're not having like thought provoking conversations, leave me out of it. But we were talking about his work experience prior to joining the company that we both were at the time. Even though he was in another business, we talked about his life experience, school, and then his goals, and he was very intentional about asking about, my goals, my motivations, and, where like I wanted to be, um, not just now, but like, the path towards where I needed to be and stuff. And that was just it for me. I knew, if anything, definitely not dating, please, because that wasn't the point that I thought, but I knew that this person was definitely somebody I wanted to have in my life, whether maybe as a work bestie or just someone I can just text and be like, hey, I'm going through it and just rant. Like, I knew that he was somebody I needed in my corner, like as a friend or as a colleague or whatever. I just didn't know what it was, but I just knew at the time.
So after that experience, I went back to Ghana. I think, and that's the interesting thing as we don't chat all the time. Like we could go 6 months and
Oh, yeah.
hi, hey, how are you? That kind of thing. So I traveled somewhere, and I think when I was returning, there was a holiday in between somewhere in Ghana at that time. So I was like, hey, are you available? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be returning. There's a holiday. I was like, can pop by and just check in and all that. So we arranged for me to travel. Though it was a very short one, I think the intention was to go on a Friday and leave on a Monday. I traveled in on a Friday. We had some good extra time in Nigeria at that time. We went to one restaurant and
Went karting, and that
yeah,
was
we
when
went
the
go
go karts in
karting and
Lagos just came up.
exactly, and we went for walks in the morning and
Mm-hmm.
all that. Staying late night to have long conversations before
Of
going to sleep.
course.
And I think I came in on a Friday. That Saturday morning was when my boss called and was like, "Hey, there is an issue on one of the projects.
Yeah.
You back like now and all that." So even when I was leaving, my boss was like, "Oh, what's up for the weekend?" So I'm going to Nigeria to visit a friend. It was like, "You paying a flight ticket to travel all the way from Ghana to go see a friend?" Oh, right, come on. I'm like, no, it's a friend. It's like, no, who pays to go visit
I
a
know,
friend like
right?
that? And it's a female, okay,
Oh
but
yeah.
I'm not a yeah. So we talked about it, and I felt maybe he was like, this guy is going to waste money. Let me just
Mm-hmm.
call him back. So I came back on Sunday instead of Monday, which was short
Mm.
lived. But it was a great experience, like
Oh
getting
yeah.
to meet her in person,
Oh
spending
yeah.
time, being in that same space, and all that. So before I left, we talked about, oh, okay, can you reciprocate? I came in, so maybe the next, I think it was in September, October when I came. So we're like,
Yeah.
okay, Christmas is just
Okay.
around the corner. If you don't have
Yeah.
anything planned,
Mm-hmm.
visit Ghana and let me give you a treat.
Let me interject. By the way, before he came, and this is when I now knew that okay, this guy is decent. So, but with him, I think that trip you made was so before that trip we had a quick chat and then I told you that I just
She said she needed a shoulder to cry on.
yes, I actually like was so hurt. I was just super like out of it because I was just trying to come to terms with everything. So he chatted me up and he was like, "Oh, typical, how are you doing?" And I was like, "Not so great." And he called, and that was even the first time he would like actually call, and then we had a long conversation. So I even slept on the phone while he was there. We had a long conversation. So when I told him, "Oh, I'm going through that and everything," he stayed through. He like really, so he's really good with words. So I call him like an evangelist. This guy, he can talk you out of anything. You preach the word of God to you now, and you'll be like, you believe. Let's just leave it there. Anyway, he talked sense into me, and he encouraged me, and on top of that he prayed for me. Like, how many guys would you see that don't know you from Adams, and then he prayed for me, and I was like, wow, this is cool. Next thing, he messaged me the next day. I was like, hey, that's when, again, back to his story, he now came to visit and we had like a good time. So trust me, those few days actually helped take my mind off the whole sort of hurt that I was going through and everything. And when he, on top of that, reached out, even though the trip was cut short, he still reached out to be like, hey, what are you doing for Christmas? You can come to Ghana like and spend Christmas and stuff. And I was like, well, I've been to Ghana one too many times, but where he was actually in Tardy, which by the way I fell in love with, but that one's another session. So the first thing I told him was, listen, and that was the time where kidnappers were like kidnapping people, not in Ghana, yeah, but it was in Nigeria. So that I was living that reality. So now when somebody's son that I don't know, I was not asking me to come all the way to Ghana, go and do Christmas. Charlie, I thought that thing twice. I just brushed it off. Next thing, but he kept following up. He was like, hey, are you any plans for Christmas and stuff? And I was like, as we're getting closer to Christmas, there wasn't honestly a plan, but I definitely didn't want to go. So I now told him, please, I don't want anybody to cut off my intestine. He was like, hey, but you're not doing anything. Instead of staying home, sopping and stuff, just, come through. Anyway, I told my friends and they were like, listen, you better go and enjoy yourself. We know where you are. You give us his address and his phone number. If you don't come back at XYZ time, we're calling the police. And of course, they were like, oh, he's also your colleague. You work in the same like company. He's never going to mess up. If he messes up, he probably has that to lose as well. So if anything, there was more to lose on his end than me. So anyway, I just, one day spontaneously, I was like, you know what? I was like in my room sopping. I was like, hey, I just booked my next flight, and Ghana is like 45 minutes away. I booked my flight that day, and I was like, I'm coming. I'm sure he was like under pressure. He now had stuff. You know how you now need to get your house ready and everything. I'm sure he started fixing things in his house and all that. This girl is coming. She didn't even give me notice. So anyway, fast forward, he picked me up from the airport, and can I tell you, I remember even telling one of my friends, and I know she's going to watch this, so she's going to know that this was the best time I had had. He not only went above and beyond, he was like, I was living the life. I had my own room. Like every day we had an itinerary. He showed me places. We traveled to places, went to the, and you know how nice Ghana can be now. Went to the best resorts. There's nowhere we didn't go to. And to top it up, we went to that place. You remember that place where they live on water?
Yeah.
Nzulezu. My dear, I bawled my eyes out. That's when emotions started coming. Like I could see the state in which people were living. Like we were so, there was even in that trip, we actually adopted a girl, like a little girl that we're still taking care of, right? Like so many things happened, and it changed my side. Like the way that he rose, like this guy teaches kids, he mentors kids, he evangelizes in Sunday school. Like I was learning a lot about him, and I was like fusing into his routine, and that's when I knew that what have I been doing in my life? Nothing. Anyway, so there's this girl we adopted. We just met her randomly. She was selling things. I don't even know how we met her. She was selling something in the market when we went to buy fish.
I think
Right?
we went for a walk or something.
Yeah.
And we saw her hawking on the road.
Yeah. She was too small a kid.
And I think it was time for school.
Yeah.
It was a school day. So we stopped and we're like, hey,
why are you not in school?
She's like, oh, she needs to
Oh my. So we asked her to come into the car. We drove to her house. We met her folks. And that day we just fell in love with her and her family. And we decided to go visit her every now and then, take care of her and stuff. Okay, we digress. Apologies. But just to share the why that was so much of one of the best trips that I had. We also went to, so Zulezu was on another experience. Like we saw, like he really wanted to take me to not just having fun, but he wanted me to see the other side of Ghana that wasn't the place where typical people would go to, right? And I enjoyed it. And we had conversations after that of how we wanted to give back, the things that we wanted to do, and the things that he had already started doing and everything. And I wanted nothing but to be part of that, right? Anyway, fast forward to going back, this uncle, because when you land in Accra, I had to take another flight to where he was, even after landing in Accra. Yeah. So the plan for me was to leave where he was and then go to Accra and then catch my flight. But he was so bad. When I was going, I was bawling. I was missing him already because I spent a whole month.
I think it was about 3 weeks.
3 weeks,
so
right?
We did Takrady.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of places in Takrady. So we did quite a lot with our usual road trips.
We went to Cape Coast.
So when we left Takrady, we drove back to Accra.
Oh yeah.
So we did a road trip. We stopped over at Cape Coast. When we got to Accra, we were like, okay, let's do something fun. We stayed in Accra, I think 1 night or 2 nights.
Yeah.
And then we drove to Sogakope, where we went to
fun fact. Somewhere in Sogakope.
Yeah, no.
Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity.
Yes.
So we went to Holy Trinity. We went to Cisneros.
Yes.
Where we saw that.
You can't even remember all those places.
That's my hometown.
I can't even remember
shit. That's my hometown. Actually, the last time I went to that place was when I was a kid.
I was gonna tell them about that. Yes.
Like I went there as a toddler at 3-4 years. So I don't remember anything.
Guys, let me tell you that story. So my husband, he's not the type that goes back home. In fact, the home he has known is currently where his family house is in. So he hasn't, because the last experience he had going back home, he fell ill as a child though.
Yeah.
So, but I really wanted to know this person. Like, I really wanted to know and understand where he's from. I really wanted to understand his roots and everything. So I encouraged him. I was like, hey, you've not gone, but what would it hurt? Let's go, check it out. And this guy agreed. This is somebody that even his mom, his dad, his sisters cannot get him to go to his hometown. But some stranger just came and he was like, oh, he agreed, and he took me there and we had a ball. I'm telling you, I remember riding a bicycle. It was
a bicycle on that.
I ate the meanest banku and tilapia fish ever. we definitely had a good time, and that also hit it for me. So it was like, okay, he wasn't in all his like years of life, like he wasn't going back home, but all of a sudden he was like, okay, let's do it for sure. And then we went, and it was the time of our life. So, and when I went there, it felt like home. Like the way I was, I'm sure he was expecting me to be all bougie and stuff. Charlie, when they brought Banku, I just, put hand, ate my fish. No, no time for bouginess. Because of course, in my mind, I was still like, this guy's my friend. Bear in mind, he hadn't asked me out then. This was just us vibing as friends and all of that. So yeah. So now, what was the experience for you then?
So it was a great experience, to be honest.
Yeah,
But even at that point, um, I was someone who at that time I wasn't like really keen on any commitment, to put it that way.
he was
I
an
wasn't
ashewo. Let me
I
tell you.
wasn't thinking I wasn't thinking marriage.
Yeah,
It never crossed my mind.
of
Like I
course.
wasn't even ready. Like in my mind,
Yeah.
in the next 5, 10 years. So I had a great experience, the long drive, and I haven't had any friend like reconnecting at that level and going to those, having those experiences together and all that. So, and to top it all, like Sugakapa, I've never been in years.
Oh
Even when I
yeah.
was in Takrady, there were a lot of places I had never been, like Mahai and those places. So even in Zulezu, that was the first time I
Oh
had to go
yeah.
there. So it took me out of my usual comfort zone. I like love the exploring, like love how we explored and all that. But I still knew like we were still a bit, how do I put it? We're still a bit careful. I felt she was
Of
still trying to be a
course.
bit careful,
Oh yeah,
like
because that's my
still
colleague at the end of
doing
the
like
day. Yeah.
jajaja and all those things. So coming back to Accra, and then she had to leave. I think that was like the first week of
Oh
January
yeah.
that she had to leave back. Had to leave for work reasons
Yeah.
and all that. So I think it was about the 14th of January after she left. I think on the 14th
I was
or
traveling to SA at the
yeah,
time, right?
yeah.
On
So
a
you
work
were you were
trip.
traveling to
Yeah.
SA and no. So I asked her out on the 14th of January.
Yeah. That was the day
Um,
I was traveling.
yeah. So I
I think there
asked
was
her
something we're
out. She
talking
didn't
about.
like. She wasn't giving any response or like
Yeah.
giving me any
I
sign.
wasn't ready.
Nothing. So I think it was when she was traveling to SA at the airport. We
Mm.
were like having a normal conversation as usual about her traveling and all. That was when she was like, "Oh, as I asked her again, like, what's on your mind? What do you want to do?" After the
Out.
whole Ghana experience, I
Yeah.
thought, well, why? Let's give it a try. It's not like you were not
You were like, let's
dating.
give it a
No, you were
try.
not dating, right? And I
Yeah.
wasn't having marriage on mind. You were not as well. So it was like, oh, let's try it. Let's see if we can, if this will work to start
Right.
off. After the
When
start,
did it click that okay,
yeah,
this is somebody I want in my corner? Mm-hmm.
After the Ghana trip, that was when like the thoughts came. Like I started having the thought,
Right.
sharing the same space, connecting with this person. I don't think we even
Fun.
have any
We
moment
laughed a
of
lot.
sadness or
Not at
argument,
all.
nothing like that. So it was like, why not? Like that was when it clicked. Like okay, we connect, we relate a lot, we shared ideas, like, and it felt like all our goals and aspirations
Yeah.
were like aligned. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
It made sense.
let's and the reason one thing for me as well was like, okay, it's friendship doesn't always translate to the best of relationships. So um and she's would I have to wait, and then she jumps into another relationship,
Yeah.
and all
He
this
was
kind of
scared. Did you catch that?
no
Okay.
works, then fair enough. So I think it was when she was going to SA, you were going to SA
Yeah.
that you at that time you said, okay, fine, let's give it a try. So you
Yeah.
left, you traveled in January. I think you returned in February, and you came back to Ghana after, like, when we started dating. So after
Yeah.
SA, she flew back to Ghana. We stayed in Accra and did some road trips again with the kids,
Yeah. Oh
my
yeah, so I
nephew,
got
my
to meet
nieces.
his family. So that's when I knew my man was taking it serious because I know in my past relationships, it would take about a year or so before meeting anybody's family. In fact, we weren't
When
even
you're
talking
open,
about
you're
that.
clean. There's nothing to
What's that
hide.
one? I'm big.
So it
Anyway,
was worth like
it was funny
getting to know.
because a month into us, by the way, let me
It
give
was
you
two
my side
months,
of the
yeah.
story. Yes, with why I took my time with accepting. Because when he asked to date, first I was thinking was I definitely cannot date my colleague. Leave that one. Second was he's Ghanaian. Hey, like I knew I loved Ghana and everything, but the last thing I thought was to be marrying. So like I knew I was most likely not going to marry a Nigerian. I knew if I if I married internationally, probably maybe a white person or a Jamaican person, because I'm into like the reggae and all of that good stuff, child. Anyway, talk for another day. But Ghana was the last of my mind. So all those things I was thinking, okay, one, he's my colleague. Two, he's Ghanaian. Like, how will he sit right with him? How will he sit? Like, for me, like, my parents are very liberal. So I knew, like, that one. They already knew that, the likelihood of me marrying someone else was extremely high. So they were very ready. But for him, I know, um, it's most recently that you find, Ghanaian and Nigerian sort of marriages and stuff. In time past, it was oftentimes difficult, right? And we'll talk about that in another, conversation. But that was already like a red flag for me. It's like, hey, please, oh, I don't want to start something that I can't finish. And of course, with my previous experience, I was like, whatever I'm going into has to be like, real clear cut. God has to like, speak to me and everything. So I needed time. But rest assured, the first day he asked, I didn't give him an answer, but I took it to God in prayer. And I was like, God, oh, see you. Because sometimes I talk to God like we're mates. I'm like, God, please see this thing, right? These are my reservations, but I'll let you lead. And I always had this prayer where God should please remove unfriendly friends from my life. Like, it should get us to the point of irreconcilable differences. And it always happened, whether at friendship level, whether at random acquaintance level. Like, there's sometimes like I'll get to know somebody, and when it's not right, like the relationship just fizzles out there, like for no reason. So that was my prayer, and I left it. He came asking again, and I was like, hmm. And at that point, I was going to South Africa, and I was going to South Africa for a long time, like about a month on a work trip. So I knew it was going to be like the loneliest time ever. Anyway, but yeah, he was persistent, and I was like, why not? Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, to your turn to Israel now. You don't hurt nobody. And we're doing distance anyway, and it was like for him, I just knew like it that irrespective of whatever relationship we had, that being with him would just reflect the good in me and would make me better, because he was just such a different person. So that was the thought for me. Anyway, fast forward to dating, then we came back to Ghana. So to his story, he took me, we met, in fact, we had a family day out. He
Yeah,
took
with
me,
my
like,
cousin.
yeah, his sisters, so his nieces and nephews, he brought them, we took them out, went to the mall. What's that mall? That was the mall they just commissioned at the
Westfield
time.
Mall.
Yeah. Went to the mall, we had fun, went to the playground, like we did everything.
I
And
think we
guess
went to
what?
go kart as well in
Yes, we
Ghana.
went go-kart, and then we did a
Mm,
little bit of shopping. And then we took them to the apartment we were in.
yeah.
And they just, in fact, meeting them for the first time, I fell in love with them. In fact, one of his sister's first daughter looks like me. Fun fact. I'm going to take a picture of both of us one time. I'm going to share it. Looks like me. So when I saw her, I was like, that's my girl. Anyway, things just started clicking. Everything was just right. Like, not saying it was perfect, like we didn't have disagreements and stuff. We definitely did. But it was just like, all those signs you be asking God be showing me every, like, even with the way he handled conflicts, the way he would talk me out of things, the way he would encourage me into things. Like, it was just clear cut. But I still was scared of moving forward, because I felt, oh, there was no like future in this thing, just because of what I had mentioned. But
Yeah.
what was your thoughts though? So let's fast forward into like month later into dating, me coming over and all that. Like, what was your
So
thoughts in the relationship?
for me, it was still very early, so I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like expecting a lot out of it. But it was giving me the chance to learn more about
Mm-hmm.
you and be what was a priority for me was let me be in the space with you. Yeah, we've been in the same space, but people can conceal
Oh
their
yeah.
true self. So for me, it was like we get to meet. So we spent a lot of time like doing a lot of travels to Nigeria,
Oh yeah.
to South Africa, Ghana. So we're doing a lot of travels at that time.
By the way, guys, we're doing international dating in every sense of that word. So basically, anywhere he's traveling to, and maybe I'm also traveling. I will probably connect and then we'll meet somewhere and then okay,
Yeah.
like we were traveling, like we
Yeah.
spent. If we saved the money that we used in our relationship, I'm sure we'd have bought like 10 houses by now. But
Yeah.
child, it was flights here and there, here and there.
It was good to like, for me it was, let's spend more time together. That's when
Yeah.
you get to learn more
Oh yeah.
of, when she'll be herself, I'll be
Oh yeah.
myself. We get to, then that's how we'll get to learn, versus being in a long distance relationship which we can be in far away from each other for years,
Oh
and
yeah.
we'll never get to really see the true personality of the person. So for me, those periods were like, get to know this person, like even in her lowest moment, see who she is, and
Mhm.
like, is that something you would want?
So yeah, throughout the relationship, everything was just great. Everything aligned to basically what I wanted in a man. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna let him tell the story of when he proposed. By the way, fun fact: he proposed 8 months after dating. And again, I'll let you tell the story. But the day he proposed, I'll tell you, he came to visit me, unannounced. He bought me nice, gifts and stuff. He always comes bearing gifts, very thoughtful. This guy. He came with gifts. Anyway, we had a good time. We're now trying to, go to bed because I know we had a trip the next day or what. Or no, we were traveling where?
To a resort.
To
You
a
had
resort.
a
Oh yeah. We're traveling to Omu Resort.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had to call it a night. So me, I was just sleepy. This uncle had another agenda in his mind. Next thing he's talking about, how we've known each other, how all that good stuff they say before they pop the question. He was saying those things. Next thing he was like that he want us to take this a step further. Yeah, yeah. By the way, it wasn't all those nice, will you marry me, dramatic bouquet and all that stuff. He didn't do that. Anyway, he did that the second time. So I had two proposals. The first one was this one I'm talking about, very basic. He told me while I was in bed and trying to sleep. So I was like, huh? As soon as he said it, Charlie, I fell asleep. Oh. Serious. I fell asleep. So it was the next morning, and I didn't even remember all that happened before the next morning. So he was the one reminding me. I was like, wait, do you remember the conversation we had? And I'm like, no. And then he started. So you can tell it from your point of view.
I think it was so it was in the, so throughout that period we were dating. For me, it was, I had I didn't want to like stay in the relationship for very long, because I've dated in the past for long relationships, like, so I didn't want to keep that for a very long period. So the usual praying, like looking out for what I wanted in her and all that. So I think when we came to Nigeria, so it was part of the conversation I wanted to have with her. So at that point, I just wanted to have a feel of where is her head, like what is it that she wants out of this. So
He's speaking English.
no,
Anyway,
no, it's true.
continue.
So I was like, okay. That's when in the evening, like just before we slept, I was like, oh, have you thought of we taking this further, like thinking about marriage and all that? Again, like we need to gauge ourselves, and mostly it was an international relationship,
Mm.
which could like be faced with a lot of challenges when it comes to marriage and all that. Do we want to like wait 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years,
Mm.
and go face that, and things doesn't like work in our favor and we have to move away from it? It was going to be very chaotic. So let's just hold the bull by the horn, as they say it. And I'm like, okay, have you thought about it? So whilst we're having that conversation, she just slept off and all that. So I was like, it's not a problem. So in the morning, I was like, we started the conversation, and she was like, oh, what was it about? So I was like, oh, this is again just to, I see what's on her mind. I was ready for it, but I knew it wasn't going to be a smooth road, because at that time I hadn't even met her family and all that. So um, let's start that conversation so we know it's something that would work for us or not. If not, why do we need to wait 3 years, 4 years, and all that? Because for me, it has to be done. It has to be done. I think after that was when we went to meet her family for the first time, which was like a Christmas period. I went down there, met the family for the first time. great family, love the experience. Because one of the things for me was also around like not just her but the family. Because I've always had the impression that who you marry, you need to even see how the family receives you. They play a big role in the marriage as well. So for me, let me meet the family. Let me meet because she had met part of some of my family at that time. So how do I connect with them? How do they receive me? And all that. So again, it was an international relationship that can have a lot of roadblocks and all that. So it was good to, even from my side as well, like have that conversation with family and say, this is what I want, this is what I'm going in for. Yeah, they know her and all that, but having that conversation around, oh, this is what I want to do and all, like in terms of marriage, how would they receive it and all that? Because, you know, yeah, people are fine when you are dating, but when it comes to taking the big step around marriage, it can swing in any direction. So going into the relationship with the person is even like the first of it. If I wasn't
Yes.
ready to like go into the long term, like with marriage and all,
Yeah, but as you know, not all relationships
yeah,
work.
that's why, like, so that's to answer your point. Even before going into the relationship, I had already like thought about this for the long term and how it would lead to marriage and all that. So going into the relationship,
Remember,
I
you
was
said
like,
you weren't thinking of marriage.
yeah, I wasn't thinking of marriage
Yeah,
before
right.
I
Before the
asked out into the
relationship. Got
relationship.
it.
But going in when we enter the relationship, go like when I had made my mind, I like made up my mind, let's go into the relationship. I was like, okay, this is the end goal.
Mm.
Why wait for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I had already, I'm a long term planner, right? So I was like, let's start, know more of this person to kind of validate what I have already seen, right? And see if this person is for real or not. Or
Mm-hmm.
was it just a cover, like she was covering up in a lot of things. So once I was able to validate that, okay,
What were
person.
the validations? That's what I
No,
want
the
to know.
validations here is, oh, she's she's prayerful. She's this. She's a nice person. She connects with my family. But I need to see beyond that. I need to see you even in your lowest moments because the long distance relationship, going on all those trips and travel was fun and all that. But I need to validate those things I have seen about you.
So how did taking it to the next step then validate it?
No, it's not about
Validate it
taking.
for
You
you?
validate before you take it to the next step.
Okay, so you had already done
Yes,
your
that's what I'm saying.
validations.
Like within that period, it was a period for me to validate and confirm that this person is really for real. And it's not something like she's doing just to show that, oh, I'm a great person, I'm a good person. So within that period, that's why I was doing a lot of travels. Like, so you may not know, but if the idea was for me, and that's what I was saying. Like, I didn't want to waste any of us to waste our times. And again, she was a very good person. So in my mind, I was like, hurting this person in the future wouldn't be like it's not part of what I want. So let's face the reality. Let's deal with what we have to. So for me, I was on a mission to like, okay, before we start dating, like it should be for the long term. Let me validate the things I need to validate about her. Like get to know her real, right? So
Okay.
I've got my validations and all that. So I was like, okay, let's have that meaningful conversation. We are adults. We are not here to like faff around like and just travel, enjoy the moments and all that. And
Okay.
so I was like, okay, let's just have that meaningful conversation. Are you like, have you thought about it? Should we like consider it? Because again, there are a lot of situations where people are in relationships where they feel like, oh yeah, we're in a great relationship, we'll get married. You go propose and they're like,
Basically, they're in a relationship
nah.
with themselves.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, I'm not interested, I wasn't looking
Yeah.
at this for marriage. So for
Yeah.
me, the earlier the better. Let's deal with reality.
So, okay, yeah, fast forward to proposing and everything. We didn't quite get married like immediately. We got married like after a year
Yeah, over
or
a year.
so, like after a year. So we had enough time to plan, think through stuff. And we'll talk about maybe in the next session, we'll talk about like the family dynamics and how they
Yeah,
took
yeah.
the whole sort of international marriage process and everything.
Mm.
So let's leave that for the next session, but it's definitely something you guys want to keep an eye on. because that was an interesting journey. Like it wasn't easy. So yes, we're here chilling, having fun, enjoying our marriage, but the road to it was definitely a tough one, and we're
And
definitely
that's what I wanted to like deal
yeah,
with quickly. Like I've seen a lot of situations where people stay in relationships for even within like Ghana
yeah,
because of tribal differences. People are in relationships for 10 years, and when they get to the point where they want to marry, everybody is like, "Oh no," because of family differences or
yeah,
tribal differences, and they have to go their separate ways and all that.
mm-hmm.
Why the 10 years? If
Yeah,
that's the intention, like it has to be now. Let's face the reality, jump the hurdles that we have to,
yeah.
and all that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so definitely look out for that. I think that will be coming up in the next session. So that's how we met, and yeah, so this is as much as we can go for this session. But yeah, if you like this and you want to know more, please just put a comment below. I'll definitely create more content around this. So
So thanks guys for watching. Just like, share,
yes,
subscribe. There is more we'll share with you on the journey.
absolutely. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.